everybody. Welcome to the Truth Will Set You Free show. This show is brought to you by TLBTV and the Liberty Beacon Project. We are always happy to have guests on the show who want to share truths that's going to make a difference in our lives. We have a special guest tonight, and his name is Dr. Ed Daube. How you doing, Doctor?
I'm doing great, and Ed's fine, Linda. I don't need to go by my title or my last name.
You just wanted me to call you Ed?
That's fine. Hey, let's keep it real here.
Uh-oh, I like that. But I still like to acknowledge what you earned.
And I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. And you won't hear it again. Hey, look, you have control. I like that. Wow. Ed?
Yes, I'm pretty comfortable with in my own skin.
He is known as an emotional doctor. I have to say that.
Actually, it's the emotions doctor.
Emotions doctor.
If it's the emotional doctor, that means I do get emotional, and sometimes I do. But I call myself the emotions doctor because I help people with their emotions.
Oh, okay.
A little bit of a difference.
And you was the first speaker for the for the anger conference that we had back in 2014.
Wow, you were at that in Los Angeles?
No, but I saw that in your profile. You were
Yes.
the first speaker that they ever had.
Well, yes, I participated in that, and it was a really good conference, actually.
Right. And you also became an author.
I did.
And you have two amazing books.
I do. And when I retired from the California Youth Authority after 32 years working as a clinical psychologist, I decided, what do I want to do in retirement? I did not want to do private practice, but I wanted to stay in the field of psychology. And I had a lot to offer. So I decided to write some books. Now, it totally blew me away when they both made the Amazon bestseller list. I totally did not anticipate that. But yes, I wrote two books. My first one was the Emotions as Tools, Control Your Life, Not Your Feelings. And the second one was Beyond Anger Management, Master Your Anger as a Strategic Tool. Both are available on Amazon. And by the way, while I'm talking about that, let me tell your listeners that if they want to download the first two chapters of my book free with no opt-in, they can go to my website, theemotionsdoctor.com, and download it.
Wow. And the thing about it, when you were growing up, that was the farthest thing from your mind as far as dealing with anger.
Oh, when I was growing up, the farthest thing from my mind was dealing with emotions at all.
Right.
I grew up in a family where emotions were not really expressed. I mean, I remember my mother would express emotions, but when she grew up, and my dad, in those generations, you just didn't express emotions. And my dad held anger in, and when he got angry, he got very angry. Now, he was never abusive, but I didn't like what I saw. So for me, I decided, no, I'm not going to get emotional. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go in my head, and I'm going to try and deal with everything cognitively. Now, that works, but it's not the most effective way to deal with it. When I started working for the Youth Authority, and I was working with young women, some women of color, and I got out of graduate school, and I could not communicate with these folks about their feelings because my language was up here and their understanding of it was down here. So I needed to figure out a way to communicate to them in a way that they would understand. And so I developed the metaphor of emotions as tools. Everybody understands what a tool is. It could be a hammer, it could be a car, it could be a phone, whatever it is. And when you look at emotions as tools, now it's, wait a minute, I don't have to be afraid of my emotions. I don't have to be afraid to express them. I can understand them because they're just tools. And if I know what the tool does and how to use it, now I can make that tool or my emotion work for me. And that's what I had to teach them how to do.
So what was the first thing you taught them?
Well, it's going to surprise you. And I'll tell you why. I was working with a young woman of color, and they had all committed serious crimes. And I had several of them who had killed their own children. Now, I had never come in contact with that in graduate school. I had to help them learn that what they did was monstrous, but they were not monsters. And in order to do that, they had to understand that they held in anger, understandably so, because they all had a history of severe emotional, physical, and mental abuse. So I had to help them understand their feelings. Sometimes I had to help them understand who they were as people. And that's why I say, I said to a young black woman, I said, look, I can't identify with you. I'm a white male. I'm twice your age, and I don't have your history. But if you will help me understand the way you see your world, your model of the world, your truth, I then can help you learn about your truth and move past it. You're looking at me very strangely, like you didn't get what I just said.
No, but my question is, did you find out what she was so angry about?
Well, yeah, all of them were angry. They were angry because they'd been mistreated, they'd been abused, they'd been taken advantage of. They weren't allowed really to express themselves as people. They had very good reasons to be angry. But what they would do is they would express their anger by hurting themselves or hurting someone else. So they really were not allowed to express or experience their anger, because every time they did, they got hurt or somebody else got hurt or they got locked up. So anger became a very negative emotion, which is, by the way, one of the myths about emotion. The myth about anger is that it's a dangerous emotion. No, it's not. And that myth, and another myth about anger is, because it's a dangerous emotion, I should not express it. That's a very restrictive myth, because what it says that your listeners, as women, as men, cannot use their anger as a tool to improve their lives and their relationships with others. Now, the way you do that, by the way, is you understand what emotions are. Let me kind of give you the Cliff Notes version. There are 6 primary emotions: mad, sad, glad, fear, disgust, and surprise. Now, these emotions we've had since we lived in caves. They helped us survive as a species. What happens to all of us, we are constantly scanning our environment. It's like radar looking for incoming missiles. We're always scanning our environment, and we do that subconsciously. Now, when we perceive a threat, our brain sends a message to the amygdala in the brain, which says, prepare for war. That's what anger is. The message of anger is, I perceive a threat that if I throw enough power at it, I can eliminate it. So when you get angry, it means your emotion is telling you, you perceive a threat that you believe you can eliminate. That's what the message of anger is. All the other emotions have different messages, but let's focus on anger here. When you get angry, and you recognize that you're angry, because you know what your body feels like when you get angry. So now you've found getting angry. Instead of saying, which most people do, okay, this is what Trump does, by the way, I perceive a threat, I'm going to attack. Anger has prepared you to do that, but it's not always the right thing to do. And the reason for that is that sometimes you misperceive the threat. Now, let me kind of give you an example here. We all have cruise controls in our cars, or most of us do. You put your cruise control on 60 miles an hour because you're on the freeway, or 65 or 80, whatever it is you put your cruise control on. And that takes your car on automatic. That's fine, as long as there are no cars in front of you that are going more slowly than that. If you don't master the cruise control and take it off when you're in traffic, you're going to get in an accident. Make sense so far?
Yes.
Now, when we get angry, many of us go on automatic pilot. We get angry, we act out, we attack the source of the threat. Mastering that emotion says, wait a minute, take a step back, take a look at the threat, take a breath to calm yourself down, and then ask yourself the question, how real is the threat? Because if it is a real threat, like you're physically being threatened, your values are being threatened, your family's being threatened, and so forth, then you need to take action. But you may decide, wait a minute, there's no threat here. What she said to me or what he said to me is just them expressing their opinion. I don't have to take that personally. No threat, the anger goes away. That's how you master anger. You acknowledge that it's a tool and it's giving you information, and then you assess the nature of the information that your emotion is giving you and make a decision. If it's a real threat, use the energy of your anger to go after it. If it's not, back off and figure out another way. Make sense?
Well, I know, like, when I was bringing up my two sons, one of the things that I understood about life is that as a parent, I created memory. And one of the things I did not want to be responsible for was justifying being angry and acting out on them. And so it was times when I was very angry.
Yep.
But
and absolutely.
Once I spoke, I couldn't take it back.
That's correct. And see, my guess is what you did. Are your kids growing up and successful now? Okay. Yes. Then what you probably did before you acted out on your anger, you thought about it. You said, I'm creating memories. You took a breath, and then you took a step back physically and psychologically, and then you decided how you wanted to approach the situation. You mastered your anger with your kids. Good for you.
Yeah, and one of the things that I also learned about when people are angry, when it's justified.
Yep.
That's the hard one.
That is the hard one, but that's what you need to decide. If the anger is justified. I'll give you an example. I think that you may have read it about me. I went on LinkedIn, and I went to a professional women's forum. And I asked the question, I said, look, I'm a male, obviously, and I want to know, when you as a professional woman express anger in your work setting, what happens? I get over 2,000 responses, and what they basically said to me is, I as a woman cannot express anger in a professional setting. Generally speaking, some could, most couldn't, because when I do, the men in that office feel threatened, and they put me down, they label me, they minimize me, and they marginalize me. So then the question becomes, okay, is the anger legitimate? Well, yeah, if your work is being stolen, it's legitimate. There's a threat there. If you're not being validated as a co-worker, then there's a legitimate threat, but you can't go at it directly. You have to go at it indirectly.
Indirectly?
Indirectly. And the way you do that is you say, okay, what's the nature of the threat? What do I need to accomplish in my work setting? You approach it as if you were approaching a project and you were managing a project. The project just happens to be to get your needs met and have your voice heard. So you look at, what are my strengths? What are my resources? What are the obstacles? In other words, who is it that I need to deal with in this work setting? How do I get around that person? You keep the anger, but you don't express it outwardly. You use the energy of the anger to make a plan to get your goals met. That's how you master anger in that setting.
And I was thinking about how you were saying how it's our nature because we're primitive to some extent. And I have had boys, I didn't have daughters. But one of the things that I really notice is that the daughters, my granddaughters versus my sons, it's like the emotions that are naturally embedded in those girls in contrast to the ones I see in the boys is extreme difference. Now, my question is, they don't know anything about angry, but they know that their emotions are driving them to react to life and to use it to their benefit. So when do the process shift over to, like, it's more to your feelings than using them to get what you want?
Well, I think it's both, Linda. I think that we need to help people, including our kids, understand that they have emotions, and that's a good thing, and they need to learn how to use their emotions to improve their lives, that is, meet their goals and their relationships. I have two sons, and my daughter is my oldest, and she she probably got more angrier than my two sons combined. And I had to deal with it. I had to help her learn what her emotions are and how to effectively master those emotions to get her needs met. Because when she wouldn't get her needs met, she would get angry. And rightly so, by the way, because that is a valid threat. What she's saying is, I have needs and I want to get my needs met. Okay, you're not meeting my needs, I'm going to get angry. So then I, as a parent, come in and I say, okay, these are the boundaries, by the way. Let's take a look. Once she's calmed down, now as a parent, we have to set limits. That's what parents do. That's how kids learn. But we don't have to let their anger, we don't have to catch their anger, in other words. Because what happens then is the child gets angry, we get angrier, they escalate, and now we're off to the races. So when a child gets angry, you go down here and you lower your voice and you continue to engage them. And then once they're engaged with you, then you can say, what's going on here? What are the needs that aren't being met? Because that's the nature of the threat that's leading you to be angry. So you have needs. Let's figure out how we can help you get your needs met. Is there a way we can do that now? Do we have to put it off? How can we do that?
But okay, you're saying needs, but a lot of times it be wants.
Yeah, but in kids, sometimes they don't know the difference.
I never thought about that.
You're right. We as an adult can look at it, we can say those aren't needs, those are wants. But to a kid, it's I want it now, therefore I need it. And we have to help them learn over time what the difference is.
So why you feel like it's easier for the boys than it is for the girls?
Well, part of the problem, and this has been documented. Part of the problem is in our society is the way we socialize boys versus girls. We socialize boys to be active action takers, to get out there and solve problems. Well, the way we socialize girls is to network, to be friends, to work through whatever the issue is by talking and by discussing and all that kind of thing. And I'm not saying that's necessarily good or bad, but we have to acknowledge that. So girls are taught that you need to not make waves and you need to get along with everybody. And it's a healthy message as far as it goes. It becomes unhealthy when a woman feels she has to subordinate or put herself down to other people in order to have friends. Then it becomes unhealthy. And that's what's happening, by the way, when you see these young girls who are being bullied on the internet. In their heads, it's like, I have to be friends with everybody. These people don't like me, therefore there must be something wrong with me. Therefore, I probably should take my own life. Yeah, and it's happened, and it is happening. And what we need to teach our daughters, and I have taught my daughter, is, you know what? You are as good as anybody else. You need to make sure that you get your needs met. Now, you need to be aware of other people as well, but your needs are just as important as anybody else's. And if other people don't recognize that, that's their problem, not necessarily yours. It's only yours if the information they're giving you tells you something about yourself that you need to change.
So what do you think is happening with boys? Because, you know, they're taught they're not supposed to cry. Yeah. It's okay for the girls to cry.
Yeah, it's an unhealthy message, and it's changing. That was the message that my dad learned. And it was the message that I picked up too until I got more into my own emotions, and I realized, you know what? I have feelings. Now, I mean, I remember years ago there was I don't remember his name, but there was a presidential candidate. I think he was out of New England, Massachusetts. But he cried, and it was over for him because he was labeled as weak, and that was the end of his bid for the presidency. I think we need to teach boys and girls that if you are in a situation where you are experiencing intense emotion, crying may be appropriate. And I say may because it depends on the situation. if you're in the middle of a meeting, in a business meeting, and you're leading the meeting and you're tearing up, it probably is not the best place to do that.
No.
Okay, but if you're in a situation where I'll give you an example. I have a very good friend who recently died. They're Hispanic, and he went into surgery and didn't come out. And his son, his son, only child, his son is in the room, and he's crying. And one of his aunts comes over and says to him something to the effect, you know, you got to be strong for your mother. And I heard this. And I didn't go over and jump on the aunt, but I went over to the kid and I said, you know something, because I'm kind of a godfather. I said to him, you know what? You just lost your father. You can experience anything you want, and if you want to cry, it's totally okay. And I said it loud enough for the aunt to hear, because I didn't want her giving him the message that he could not experience his emotion. I was respectful, but I made it very clear to him that it's okay to feel your emotions. I didn't want him bottling them up.
Wow, that's important. And the thing about it, you learned that you had some issues with your emotions when you sat in on a group of people. You thought you was just joining in because you needed for an internship.
Yeah, that was when I was, it was part of my internship. And that's, by the way, how I got introduced to emotions. I went to it's called Henry Olaf House in San Francisco. And the director of the program was a neighbor of my parents, because I grew up in San Francisco. And I wanted to learn about drug treatment. And so I went to him and I said, hey, can I sit in on your groups? And he said, no. I said, well, why not? He said, because you can't just sit in, but you can be a participant observer. And I thought, piece of cake. I have a PhD in psychology almost. I wasn't quite there yet. And last I was. I had a PhD in psychology, and I was going to sit in, and I don't have a drug problem, so it's going to be easy for me. Well, it took these men, was an all-male group, 6 months to break through my defenses. And what they did is they labeled me a non-drinking alcoholic. And what they said was, you know, Ed, you don't express your emotions, you bottle them up, and your escape is in your books. So when you feel something, you go and you read or you do what you do. They said, you are no different from us. We use drugs and alcohol, and you use academics. It was a real eye-opener for me.
Okay, so tell me, once you came to that realization, what changed about you? Did you notice a difference in your body or your life once that was realized?
Well, yeah. I went through a period of time when my emotions kind of were flooding in on me, and I was taking a look at how I felt towards my family, towards my upbringing, and I spent a lot of time. The way I tend to work my feelings through is I journal, and that's very helpful to me. So I did a lot of journaling in terms of expressing my feelings and analyzing and taking a look at what was going on. And then I said, okay, I now am more in touch with my feelings. I know that when I start working, if I ever do, I'll have clients I need to work with. So I need to be able to help myself first so that I can help others. So yeah, there was an emotional being overwhelmed and then dealing with that. And then there was a coming to an understanding of what feelings were and how to deal with them. That was the beginning of my emotions as tools model. I just didn't know it at the time.
So would you say feelings and emotion are basically the same thing?
They are the same. Now, if you go into the literature, they will make a distinction between feelings and emotions. In terms of everyday use, they're basically the same. They're interchangeable.
Okay.
So if you talk about emotions, you talk about feelings, they're the same.
So they just looked at you and knew you had a problem.
Well, they did, but I didn't see it. And it took them 6 months to get through my defenses, which were very strong, by the way.
But would you say that you were happy before this happened?
Oh yeah, I was happy. I just didn't express anger. And I didn't do a whole lot of expression of sadness. It was mostly the anger that I held in. And that's what I had to deal with. So I didn't get angry. Or, I did, but if you knew me, you wouldn't have seen it because I didn't express it outwardly. I held it in.
Angry.
Exactly.
I'm trying to think how it's like when you're angry. To me, that's when people say they're mad.
Yeah, same thing. Mad, anger, same thing. If you're mad, you're angry. Now, you can be very angry. You can be a little bit mad. You can be very mad. I mean, there are degrees. It isn't that somebody gets mad and they're going to go out and hurt somebody. So there are degrees, but it's the same emotion.
And another thing that you brought my attention to was how men, when their ego is threatened, they don't want control of their emotions. They want to hide behind anger and attack people.
Right. And what happens there is that men tend to use anger as a secondary emotion. Now, when you look at the literature or you go online, many writers will say, well, anger is a secondary emotion. And I need to clear that up because that's another myth. No, anger is a primary emotion. However, sometimes anger will be used as a secondary emotion. And what I mean by that is this. If I, as a man, feel anxious or nervous, now anxiety is a future-based emotion, by the way. The message is there may be a threat out there and that threat may hurt me. So anxiety, I feel it now, but it's really directed towards some future event. Now that being said, anxiety is not a feel-good emotion. Anxiety leaves us feeling vulnerable, it leaves us feeling weak, and men in particular don't like feeling vulnerable or weak. So what we do is instead of saying to you, I'm really anxious about that, I'm not feeling good about that, I'm feeling kind of nervous, I'm feeling kind of vulnerable here. No, what they say is, I'm pissed off. Now, what that does is it makes you back off because that's what anger does. And it allows me to feel strong because anger empowers me and I don't have to deal with or recognize my own anxiety, which doesn't feel good. Sadness is another one. If I'm feeling sad, I may show anger because it enables me to avoid feeling sad. It's anger as a secondary, or in that case, dishonest emotion.
And another thing you had mentioned was when you start realizing anger as a tool, emotions as a tool, is just like when you have PTSD, you have to know your triggers.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the techniques behind mastering an emotion. You have to know what triggers you. There are a couple of ways of knowing that you're angry. One, of course, is what your body tells you. If you get, and a lot of people don't know this, they're not really tuned into their body. But if you tune into where you experience anger, maybe there's a tightness in your head, maybe there's a warmth that you feel in your head when you get angry. So when you begin to feel that, you can say, oh, anger is coming on. Okay. But you can also be aware of what your triggers are. If I know that every time I come in contact with a certain person, I'm going to get angry because I just don't like the way they do things, that person now is a trigger for my anger. Now I need to make a distinction here, Lynn, and that is that person does not cause my anger. What that person is a trigger for me to experience threat and therefore to get angry. So if I know that Susie Q is a trigger for me, when I have to meet with Susie Q, I'm going to prepare myself ahead of time before I go into her office or before I go into her house, because I know that's a trigger. For me, one of my triggers is if I'm moving towards a goal, I'm moving to get something done, and I get interrupted. That's a trigger for me, and I tend to get angry, and I have to be aware of it, because what happens is I may be doing something and I'm at home and I'm moving towards whatever it is I'm about to get done, and my wife says, "Oh, by the way," well, now she has interrupted my goal. But I know that that's a trigger. So before I recognized that, when she would do that, I would get angry, and whether I said it or not, I was still angry. Now I don't get angry because I realize that's a trigger. So what I've done is I've eliminated that trigger. Another way to look at it is, if you have a switch on your wall that turns a light on and off, you can just connect that switch, or wherever the switch happens to be. The switch is still there, but it's no longer operative. It's not functioning. So it's no longer a trigger for me because I realize when it is, I may do or say something I later regret, and I don't want to do that. So I'm aware of my triggers, and you can learn your triggers by recognizing when you're angry and taking a step back and saying, what's going on here? What's the threat? What may have triggered my anger? So our listeners now can be aware what their triggers are and what the physical signs of their anger, and that they understand what anger is, and now they can begin to master it.
Okay, so let's say somebody come at you with anger.
That's a very good point. And I wrote an article, in fact, what to do when somebody directs their anger at you. And the first thing you need to do is you need to understand, there's a couple of things you need to understand. We need to understand that everybody, including ourselves, when we do something, we do the best we can in the moment, given our model of the world. Let me say that again because it's often misunderstood. When I do something or you do something, we are doing the best we can in the moment, given our model of the world. Now, it's not the best possible, but it's the best for you in that moment. Now, if we make that assumption, now, when you get angry at me, instead of me, which I talked about before, you get angry at me, I get angry at you, you get angry at me, and we're off to the races. What I can do is I can train myself to say, wait a minute, she's angry at me. All right, I know that the nature of anger is that she perceives a threat. So now I need to understand what she perceives me as a threat. And I also need to understand that even though you may be coming at me what I think is in a wrong way, you're doing the best you can given your model of the world. What I need to do, if our relationship is important to me, what I need to do is understand how you see me as a threat. Once I do that, I now have the option of working with your anger, acknowledging it, apologizing, whatever I need to do, but I'm not going to escalate it. Because I need to either, if I'm a threat, I need to deal with that, or if I'm not, I need to change how you see me or your model of the world. Does that make sense?
Oh, definitely. I wanted to also ask you on a different scale of things. Do you feel like people pick up on vibrations of anger in the world, or that it just walks around inside of them? Because it seemed like to me, people are bouncing off all kind of anger everywhere. Is that just me being sensitive, or you think every human being is responding to other people's anger?
Well, interesting that you should ask that, because what we have found, research has found that we have in our brain what are called mirror neurons. And they help us live in a social situation. When I look at what's going on inside of you on a subconscious level, and I will off so that I can respond to it. So I think as the level of anger goes up in the world, we become more sensitized to it. And because we're more sensitized to it, we pick up on it more frequently and more easily. So I think the answer to your question is yes.
Because it just seemed like right now, everywhere I go, I just sense this anger, like eventually it's going to turn on humanity.
Well, I sure hope not, but it could. And see, for you now, and for me too, what we need to do is we need to be aware that the anger's out there and not catch that anger like a cold, because emotions are contagious. Go into a room sometime and yawn. And when you do that, you'll see everybody around you yawn.
Right.
Right. Or go into a room and smile, and your smile will be contagious. So emotions are contagious. They're not really, it's not like a disease, but we tend to catch another person's emotion. And with anger, we have to be careful of that. We have to say, wait a minute, I'm not going to let your anger, I'm not going to take on your anger. I'm going to stay separate from it so that I now master my own feelings and I'm now in control of the situation as it applies to me. I'll notice the anger, and if it's something I have to deal with, I will. Otherwise, I'm just going to move on because I can't necessarily impact it.
Well, just like you were saying how, parents have an effect on their children's, how they perceive life and live in life. And like with you not being able to respond to anger because it really didn't exist obvious in your life. It's like when I see our government, I see men that are quietly angry.
Yes.
But yet there's a leader who is openly angry. So it's almost like he is programming America to be angry. And he's programming innocent people to quietly be angry. But he wants the people to react to his anger on each other.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that he's programming it as much as he's giving people permission to express their anger without necessarily thinking about how they do that. And that's where the unhealthy message comes in. If he were to say, yeah, you have a right to be angry, but be aware of how you express it. Don't go attacking other people just because you're angry.
But he's letting it go loose, and it's like you have generations that still have to mature and grow up, and they're starting to learn that, hey, anger is power.
Oh, yeah. Anger very definitely empowers us. And the interesting thing is, if we go back to the origins of anger, when we were living in caves, if I got angry and I looked angry, that sent a message to you, don't mess with me, because you may not like the results. And that's one of the functions of anger. It's to send a message to somebody who's going to attack me to back off. Anger does that. But if you're in a situation where you feel my anger is justified, and whatever I do and whoever I hurt is justified because I experience a threat, that's a road we don't want to go down, but it's a road I think we are going down, because that's what our president does. He feels threatened, he attacks. He doesn't analyze it, he doesn't look at it. So in his mind, if you threaten me, I'm going to annihilate you. And he says that. He says, if you punch one, I'm going to punch 4 times, or whatever he says. And it's an unhealthy message. And the reason it's an unhealthy message for our listeners to understand, our viewers, it's an unhealthy message because what it does is it removes an important step in mastering anger. And that important step is, I'm angry, I need to step back, and I need to assess the nature of the threat and whether or not my anger is appropriate. And what Trump has done is he's removed that step. Because what he says is, if you attack me, I now am justified to attack you back. Twice as hard as you came at me.
So what do we tell our children when it has been proven being this way can make you president of the United States?
What we tell our children, if they ask, is this man was very brilliant in being able to tap into what was going on, to an underlying trend in America. And he was able to utilize that to become president. If we lived in a different time, he probably would not be president because, as people have pointed out, he's not really fit for the job. So what we need to do is we need to look at him as an individual who's way over his head in that position, and we need to not confuse the office with the person. You're seeing that now. You're seeing what people are saying, well, wait a minute, he's not building up the office, and he deserves to be respected because he's in that office. Well, maybe to a point. But on the other hand, we need to look at the person and what we can learn from that person and about that person, and not necessarily take him as an example of the way we should be.
Wow. Because I wonder too, anger plays a big part with PTSD. And I feel like America is impacted and full of people with PTSD for various reasons. How do you help a person with PTSD in their anger?
Okay, well, if they have PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, then they are always in a constant state of hyper-alertness because of what they've experienced. And anger may or may not be a part of that. I would like to, instead of assuming that, well, let's say they do have PTSD, and they're constantly in a hyper-aroused state because they're overly alert. Then what I need to do if I need to deal with this person is I need to present myself as calm and stable and as not a threat. And if I see in them that they perceive me as a threat, I need to take a step back to give them some room. I need to not get angry with them because that just heightens their view of the world as a threatening place. So I need to help them, if at all possible, by interacting with me. Well, for example, when I was working at the youth authority, I had a young woman I was dealing with. She said to me, Dr. Daube, all men are bad. And I said to her, well, I'm a man. And she said to me, no, you're not. Now think about this for a minute. Obviously, I look like a male.
Okay.
But the message that she was giving me is all men in her life had been dangerous to her. So she decided that all men were dangerous. Now, I was Dr. Daube. I had established that I was not a threat to her. So it was like, no, you're not a man, you're Dr. Daube. I was now the exception to the rule. So getting back to your person with PTSD, if that person sees threat all around them, you then can interact with them and clearly establish that you're an exception to the rule. You are not a threat. So now they can then reduce their level of arousal because they don't have to be concerned about you. And then once you do that, then you can begin to help them, if they're open to it, with their anger or whatever else is going on.
Okay, just like a person with road rage, what do you think is actually controlling them? Is it their ego or?
Well, with road rage, yeah, ego is involved in it, but with road rage, what they're saying is, you are a threat to me. You're a threat to my getting where I want to go. You're a threat because you cut me off and cut in front of me. So you are perceived as a threat to me, and I'm going to eliminate you as a threat. So whether it's ego or it's something else, they perceive you as a threat. And that's happening more and more today. Anymore, what some people want to do, and I've wanted to do it myself, although I hate to admit it. When somebody cuts me off, I want to stick my hand out the window and give them a one-finger salute. I say it, but I do. I don't do it anymore.
I don't think it's a good idea.
It's not wise. Doesn't mean I don't want to, but I don't. Because, again, I don't want to be perceived as a threat to this person because I don't know what they're going to do. It just isn't worth it to me.
Right.
I mean, especially when you have people coming up beside you and shooting you through the window. It's like, I don't want to be in that situation. I'd rather give them let them go ahead of me, let them speak, whatever they want to do, and just not deal with it. It just isn't worth it to me.
Okay, like a person, oftentimes when a person do harm to another person and anger seems to be the dominating force, but then they learned that they were reacting out of pain. Is that possibly the real reason, or could it be a hidden reason?
That very well could be the reason. But what it could be is if I'm experiencing pain as a man or as a woman, I'm experiencing pain and I don't want to acknowledge that pain, or I see you as a cause of my pain, now my course of action is to take you out because you're hurting me. You're a threat to me. So it might very well be anger. And what has to happen is I need to take a look at the nature of my pain. You see, not so, I haven't seen it in a while, but for a while there you were seeing it frequently where Hollywood stars or athletes would beat up their girlfriends and would say, when asked, well, she made me angry. She hurt me. And what they need to understand is, no one can make you angry. I can't make you feel anything. Now, I may do something that you choose to see as a threat and you choose to get angry about, but I'm not making you angry. I may be the threat that you perceive, but your anger is your choice, and your actions are always your choice. You are always responsible for what you do. You can never blame the feeling. The feeling may lead you or motivate you in that direction. Yeah, that's what anger does. It motivates you to take action. It is a motivator. And the action it motivates you to take is to eliminate the threat. Got that? Do that is always on you. If you beat up your girlfriend because you're pissed off, you're responsible for beating up your girlfriend, because what you could have done is walked away. You could have called her a name. You could have gotten angry and beat the walls. There are all kinds of things you could have done. But beating her up was one of those choices, and it wasn't a good one. That's what I would tell them if they asked.
Oh, wow. And in your book about anger, you're saying getting beyond managing anger?
Yes, and here's where that comes from. The anger management literature and anger management groups, except for the really good ones, most of them, what they do is they teach you to manage or control your anger. And they teach you maybe relaxation, and they teach you to recognize your anger. And that's good as far as it goes. What I want my readers to understand, and our viewers here, is that it's only the start. Yes, when you get angry, you need to start and manage your anger. And what that means is you take a breath to lower your arousal, you stop what you're doing, and then you move into anger mastery. And anger mastery is assessing what's going on, understanding the nature of the threat, and choosing your response. So what I'm saying is anger management is just a start. And many anger management programs are not successful because all they do is they teach you to control. And people get through that and they say, oh, this just isn't enough. I want to know what anger is. I want to know where it comes from. I want to know how to move beyond anger management so that I can use my anger. And that's why I say go beyond anger management to anger mastery. So now your anger becomes a useful tool to you that you don't have to only control. In fact, you don't necessarily have to control it at all. Let me step back a minute. Yes, you control it only to the point so that you don't react to your anger and act out and do something stupid. Once you've done that, you're no longer controlling your anger, you're mastering it, and you're understanding what it's telling you, and you're making a choice. Because if you are indeed in a real situation where you're being threatened, all the energy your anger gives you. If you're physically being threatened and you get angry, you want to attack tooth and nail and everything. But the threat, then no. I mean, if my kid does something and they're all grown now and out of the house, but if they did something and I get angry and I attack them, that's not going to solve anything. What I need to do is I need to understand what it was that they did that I perceived as a threat, so that now we can talk about it. And that athlete who attacks his girlfriend, what he needs to learn is, All right, first he needs to learn to control his anger. Yes, that's true. That's anger management. But then he needs to take the next step and say, wait a minute, what is it that she did that I got so pissed off about? Not what did she do that pissed me off, because now she's the cause. What did she do that I perceived as a threat that I got angry at? Because now I can look at me. And I'm responsible for my own anger, always, in every situation. I mean, I also wrote an article that said, you know, there's no such thing as an anger problem. Yeah, you hear it all the time. I've got an anger problem. One of my students told me that in a personal growth class I had. And I said, really, what do you mean? He says, well, whenever so-and-so does such and such, or whenever I'm in it, and he told me all of his triggers. He said, I've got an anger problem. I said, no, you don't have an anger problem. What you have is a problem with assessing what's going on that's leading you to be angry and choosing how you want to respond to that. Very different approach.
Right.
And while I'm thinking about it, your listeners might, if they're interested in anything that I've written, they can go to my website, theemotionsdoctor.com. Right-hand corner, there is an index to all of my posts. They go back 2-3 years. So they don't have to flip through everything I've written. They can go to my index. They can flip, that'll take them to a PDF document. They can go to the article they want. Then they can go to where it's archived and go right to the article.
Wow. And give us the titles of those 2 books again, please.
Okay. The first one it's called Emotions as Tools. I happen to have it here. It's called A Self-Help Guide to Controlling Your Life, Not Your Feelings. Emotions as Tools. The second one is Beyond Anger Management, Master Your Anger as a Strategic Tool. Those are my 2 books. And they're both available on Amazon in different formats. So they can Google me and that'll probably take them there too. But easiest is to go to Amazon and either put in Emotions as Tools or Beyond Anger Management.
And the bottom line is what for you as far as both of those books together?
The bottom line is I want people to be educated, and whether they buy my books, which I really would like them to do, but if they don't want to do that or they want to start, they can go to my website and they can get all kinds of really good information. My whole purpose, because I don't get rich off of books, the royalty is nice, but you know, it's not going to pay the rent. But my goal here, again, buy the book, please. But if you don't want to do that, get the information from my website. The important point to me is that they get the information. My goal now in retirement is to educate people about their emotions, which is why I do the website and why I write and why I go on Quora and all that kind of thing, because I want to educate people. So however you get the information, get it from a reliable source, because there's all kinds of misinformation out there on the web. You can't just go to a website and look up anger and expect it necessarily to be correct. So if you go to a website and you read something and it doesn't seem quite right, go to a different website. Go to my website.
Well, it's definitely an excellent book about anger. I enjoyed it. And for you to be able to simplify in the way you did was amazing. I mean, even if you don't have a struggling issue with anger, just being more conscious of your emotions, period, is useful. You know, I appreciate the book. It's an excellent book.
Well, thank you very much. And again, I had to learn to do that because I couldn't communicate with the young men and women in the youth authority that I had to treat. My language just didn't work. So I had to learn how to simplify concepts. And by the way, you asked what I did after that internship. I had to learn how to explain what emotions were in a way that I could understand it without using fancy language, so that then I could explain it to others. Because if I can't explain it to others, I don't understand it. And so that's where the simplified language came from, and the examples and using metaphor and all that kind of thing. So that's where I learned to do that. They taught me as much as I taught them.
It was part of the journey.
it was, and I'm still on the journey, by the way. I mean, I'd like to say that I've totally mastered my anger, but I'd be lying if I did.
It's a progressive thing, and it's nice to be conscious. That's pretty much what the whole thing boils down to, and to slow it down.
That's exactly correct. And you mentioned that it's a journey. And what is really important for our listeners to understand is when they enter onto this journey to begin to master their emotions, they're going to mess up. It's like learning anything. Think about when they can think about when they first learned how to ride a bike. They fell off the bike more than they were on the bike. It's a learning process. And if they understand that and they give themselves some space and be, let me take it a little bit differently. If they treated themselves the way they treat others, then they'll get along much more rapidly, or much better. What I mean by that is we are much more caring with others and more understanding when people make mistakes than we are with ourselves.
This is true.
And so we need to kind of back off and be a little patient with ourselves, because it's a learning process.
Ed.
Yes.
You are on the Truth Will Set You Free show. Give us a truth to remember you by.
I appreciate that. I'm glad I was able to help.
Give us a truth to remember you by.
Did I answer all your questions?
Except for this one. I want you to leave us with the truth to remember you by.
Okay. The truth to remember me by is that you have your emotions for a reason, and you can learn to master them and use them to your advantage to improve your life and your relationships. As long as you remember that, then all it's a matter of is getting the information and applying it, and the information's out there.
Thank you for being on our show today.
Well, I appreciate you having me. And if you ever have a slot and you want me back and you want to continue this conversation, hey, I'm up for it completely.
And when you want to come back, let me know.
I will do that.
Take care.
All right, you too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.